One of the reasons the Aeropress is such a popular brewing device for coffee is because it's super flexible. You can make all sorts of different types of coffee in an Aeropress. But can you do an espresso? I've been messing around with the Aeropress at home, traveling, in the coffee shop, just working to try to create a recipe that mimics an espresso. Of course, you can't do a true espresso with tons of pressure, but I think you can get close. So on today's episode, I'm gonna walk you through my recipe and then show you an add-on product that I think makes it even better. So let's make this coffee. A true espresso is 2-to-1, meaning if you're using 18 grams of coffee, like I'm going to in this recipe, you're getting 36 grams out the other side. And that's more or less what we're gonna go for here. So we have our Aeropress, pull it all apart, like so. We're going to turn our water on. I'm using extremely hot water for this because I want to get as much of an extraction as I possibly can. And also we use like a medium light roast here, even though it's an espresso roast. This is our Burundi. So we'll take one of these filters. If you're British or American or you use Fahrenheit, 98 degrees is 208 Fahrenheit. So we're gonna put that filter in. We're gonna pop this on. And then I'm just gonna give it a rinse. This serves two purposes, not only just rinsing it, but warming up the brewer just a little bit as well. Pour that out. And we're gonna pop this onto a glass. I'm gonna move this into a place that you can actually see the magic happening, like that. Now, obviously you don't need a dosing cup. You can just use this and grind directly into it if you'd like. We have dosing cups, so we're gonna use them. I have 18 grams of ground coffee. I've gone for a really fine grind. Basically, I've just ground the coffee the same as we would for an espresso up in the coffee shop upstairs. So this is a very fine grind. I'm gonna pour that in, tap that up, clear the scale again. Now, I'm gonna swish this around to make the bed nice and flat. And I'm going to pour in now 20 grams of water or 18 grams of water. Basically, however much coffee you put in, put this much water in for your first pour. So we'll do 18 grams. This is kind of like a bloom. Basically, we're just saturating the coffee. Exactly 20. And then I'm just gonna give it a little swish. And you can see no coffee so far has dripped into the bottom. If you're getting coffee dripping through, your bloom is probably a little bit too much. I'm going to set the timer now, and I'm going to let this soak for 45 seconds. Basically, I want a really long bloom just to make sure that it's degassed, but also to make sure this coffee is absorbing as much of this water as possible. I want this coffee to feel full-bodied. I want it to feel strong. I want it to feel like an espresso. So move some of this stuff out of the way. We're at 45 seconds. And now I'm going to add 40 more grams. Essentially, this pour is now our output. This is what we're going to get out of the coffee at the end. So we're going to put in a total of 60 grams. The 20 the first time, and now 40. Gives us exactly 60 grams. I'm pretty proud of that. And again, we're just gonna give it a little swish. I'm gonna take it off the scale. You can also give it a quick stir, like this. You might see some coffee dripping through the bottom right now. That's not a big deal. But this is the big difference between this recipe and what a lot of people do, I think. Because I've used such a fine grind, I'm not waiting. I'm not like letting this soak for 2 minutes. I'm going straight in to pressing this coffee through. I found that if I wait too long, I get really bitter coffee. So we're doing our extraction right now. This is a lot of pressure because it is a very fine ground on the coffee. And so you can see I'm struggling a little bit, but not so much. There are some people that believe that now where you're starting to hear the air, you should stop. I found that I got the best coffee when I just pushed all the way through like that. We're gonna take that out. We've got our little mini espresso here. We're going to pop out the spent grounds. I'll let Neil show you the puck there, but it is so fine. And this is the extraction. This is 40 grams of espresso. You can see there's no crema. And I find with darker roasts, you can get a little bit of crema, but despite this being extremely fresh coffee, you just don't create enough pressure with the Aeropress to get a really like heavy crema layer. But it is a very, very nice coffee. It is full-bodied, it's rounded, and it's really nice. It's probably the closest tasting to an espresso that I've had from the Aeropress. And I tested dozens of recipes. I watched lots of YouTube videos on different recipes. This is the closest to an espresso like we would have upstairs in the coffee shop, at least from a mouthfeel standpoint. So this is absolutely delicious. I don't want to stop drinking it, but I will. I'm going to set it to the side. I'm going to show you a product that I found made an even better version of that, and that's the Prismo. This little dude is the Prismo. This is from Fellow, and essentially it's just a valve, a steel filter, and you put that in, and then let me rinse this off. And essentially this just replaces this base that comes with the Aeropress. It just pops on like that. And the whole reason for it is it just creates even more pressure. All the extracted coffee has to come through one single point, and it just creates more pressure. Has the added bonus if you don't need to use the paper filter, so when you're traveling you don't need to pack them around with you, which is great. And I found that it does just a slightly better version of this coffee, even more body. So let's make another cup. And again, I'm going to warm up the brewer. I'm going to pour that out. Okay, so the brewer's all set up. I found that you can use a little bit coarser of a grind with the Prismo. That being said, I'm going to use exactly the same grind, the exact same recipe. This is again 18 grams. Turn the scale on. Again, I'm using 98-degree water. What did I say that was in Fahrenheit? 208 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're curious, this is also by Fellow, this kettle that we're using here. And we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna flatten our bed by shaking this up a bit. We're gonna pour 20 grams of water in now, trying to get all the grounds nice and saturated. Start the timer for 45 seconds. Give this a little swirl. Flatten the bed. You can also, because you have the one-way valve on this thing, you can also stir the coffee at this point if you feel like it, just to make sure your bed is nice and flat and everything's getting coverage. And you're gonna wait for that 45 seconds. Okay, so that's 45 seconds. Now we're gonna add those last 40 grams, same as the last recipe, 20 grams. Let it bloom for 45 seconds. Then add another 40 grams. Give it a little spin. Pop that off the scale. Give it a stir. And I don't let it brew at all at this point. It's almost just straight into the press. And you'll hear the valve pop open like that. And the coffee starts coming through. Now, for whatever reason, when I use the Prismo, I just get better body. And I think it's just because it creates way more pressure. As you can see, I'm really pushing down on this. I don't need to stand up, but that would help. And you can hear now it's mostly air coming through. Some people would stop. I didn't find any difference in the taste. We're gonna pop that through and it's done. Take that off. And again, there's no crema here. I mean, there's a little bit more crema on this, but it's not an espresso that's like 50% crema and 50% espresso. That's just not what you get with an Aeropress, no matter what you do. I don't think you could do latte art in this coffee if that's what you wanted, but it would be a latte. You could add milk and make a latte or a flat white or a cappuccino. It is that strong of a coffee. In fact, you know what? Let's try to make some latte art. Let's go upstairs. Get Neil's silly camera out of the way. We're filming a little bit, guys, so. Oh, a little bit too much air here. Here we go. No crema and no barista skills. You know what? Yeah, you can do latte art. It's just not great latte art. Okay, back downstairs. Bye, guys. As I was pouring my latte art, I realized I was so shaky because I've been drinking espressos filming this for so much of the morning. So my latte art wasn't great, but to be honest, it was totally fine. I was able to make latte art, although it was just a weird looking heart, very easily. I could have done a tulip, I could have done any latte art I normally could have done in an espresso pulled upstairs. The taste, this is like slightly larger than a flat white, is actually, look at how shaky my hand is from drinking too much coffee. The taste is actually really, really good. It's very, very close to what we would serve upstairs taste-wise. And I think that this recipe mimics an espresso better than any of the other recipes I've tried or tested from other people online. So give this a shot. It was 18 grams of coffee ground to espresso fineness. Then it was 20 grams of water at 98 degrees to bloom for 45 seconds. Then it was another 40 grams of water after that, then pressed right away and ready to drink.